They told you Brock Lesnar was untouchable. They told you nobody could put fear in that man's eyes. The Beast Incarnate. The 1 in 21 and 1. The man who broke the streak, conquered John Cena, and made an entire locker room look over their shoulder every single Monday night. They sold you that story for years. And last night on Raw, Obafemi destroyed that story. Burned it to the ground. In front of thousands of people. Live. On camera. In a way that made even the most seasoned wrestling veterans in that arena go completely silent. We're not talking about a beatdown. We're not talking about a brawl. We're talking about something that crossed a line that doesn't get crossed on WWE television. Something that made the announcers stutter. Something that production clearly was not ready for. If you missed Raw last night, you need to understand this was not a wrestling moment. This was a warning. And if you think this is just another return angle, just another overhyped segment, WWE is going to cool off in 2 weeks. Stay right here, because I'm about to show you exactly why this time is completely different, and why Brock Lesnar, for the first time in his entire career, might genuinely have something to be afraid of. Segment 1 set the scene. Let's go back. Let's put this in context, because the people who are just reacting to clips on social media are missing the full picture. Brock Lesnar has been operating in WWE with a kind of impunity that no other performer has ever had. The man shows up when he wants. He destroys who he wants. He takes titles when it suits him. He's beaten legends, broken records, and walked away from every confrontation looking like the most dangerous human being on the planet. That's not a knock on Brock. That's just the reality of what his character has been built to represent for over 2 decades. Now, Obafemi, let's talk about who this man is, because a lot of you are waking up to him right now and you need the full story. This is not a debut. This is not a developmental call-up who got lucky. Obafemi has been building toward this moment with a quiet, calculated, almost unsettling intensity that the WWE Universe has never seen matched. He doesn't cut flashy promos. He doesn't chase cheap pops. He moves through this business like a man who made a decision a long time ago about exactly how this story ends. And every single thing he has done since returning to Raw has been pointing directly at Brock Lesnar. The question everyone was asking going into last night was, what happens when that force meets the beast? The answer shook the entire arena. Segment 2, the moment itself. Here's how it went down, and I want you to picture every second of this. Brock Lesnar was in the ring doing what Brock Lesnar does, making the entire roster look irrelevant. Paul Heyman was at ringside running his mouth. The crowd was split, like they always are with Brock, half in awe, half desperate for someone to finally step to him. The lights went out. Now look, we've seen lights out returns before. We've seen smoke and pyro and dramatic music hits. WWE has done it 1,000 times. But this was different. This blackout lasted longer than it should have. Long enough that the crowd stopped cheering and started murmuring. Long enough that you could see Brock Lesnar scan the arena with something on his face that wasn't quite confidence anymore. And then Obafemi's music hit. The pop was enormous, but here's what's fascinating: it died down almost immediately. Because Obafemi didn't run to the ring. He didn't sprint down the ramp pumping his fists. He walked. Slowly. With his eyes locked on Brock from the moment he stepped through the curtain. No acknowledgement of the crowd. No playing to the cameras. Just locked in, walking forward, like a man who had already seen how this ends in his mind and was simply showing up to confirm it. Brock met him at the ropes. Paul Heyman tried to get between them. And this is where the segment went from exciting to genuinely dangerous. Obafemi grabbed Paul Heyman by the collar, and not in a worked, WWE gentle way. The gasp from the crowd told you everything. Heyman's face told you the rest. Brock went nuclear immediately, which is exactly what Obafemi wanted, because the moment Brock charged, Obafemi dropped Heyman, sidestepped Lesnar's rush, and hit a counter so violent, so sudden, so perfectly timed that Brock's entire body folded in a way that had people in the arena audibly reacting with concern. Then it escalated. What Obafemi did next, and I want to be very careful about how I describe this because there's real discussion backstage about how far this one involved the steel steps, the announce table, and a move that replays clearly show was not called the way a standard WWE finish is called. The production team cut away at a moment they normally wouldn't. The ref was waving it off in a way that looked like genuine protocol, not a worked finish. Brock ended up on the outside of the ring, not standing tall, not smirking and walking away. Down, actually down. And Obafemi stood over him, not celebrating, not posing for the crowd, just standing there, looking at him, like he was studying something he'd completed. That image is going to haunt this feud for months. Segment 3, why this is different. Now here's where I need you to think critically, because the internet is already splitting into 2 camps and both sides are missing important pieces. Camp 1 says this is pure storytelling and Brock is fine and this is just WWE doing what they do to build heat. And yes, obviously there are layers of performance here. Obviously this is professional wrestling and everything is constructed within a framework. I'm not naive. Neither are you. But Camp 2 is saying something went wrong last night, and there's evidence worth examining. First, the cutaway. WWE cameras are trained to capture everything, that's the whole product. The fact that a camera cut away from what should have been the climax of the segment suggests someone in production made a real-time decision. You don't make that call unless something is off. Second, the locker room reaction. Multiple people backstage have reportedly been talking about what happened in a way that doesn't match the usual post-segment energy when a planned moment lands well. When something goes right in WWE, the locker room celebrates. The reports coming out of last night describe a very different atmosphere. Quiet. Watchful. Third, and this is the one that's got me, and should have you, Brock Lesnar's post-show behavior. The Beast doesn't hide. He's never been someone who disappears after a segment. Last night, by multiple accounts, Brock was not his usual self after the cameras went off. Make of that what you will. None of this means someone got seriously hurt. None of this is me saying this was a shoot. What it does mean is that something happened last night that exists in that uncomfortable space between performance and reality that professional wrestling occasionally stumbles into, and when it does, it produces the most compelling television this industry is capable of making. Segment for the stakes going forward. So where does this go? Because here's the thing about Obafemi's return that separates it from every other guy comes back and beats up Brock angle WWE has tried. The others were always framed around making the returning star look tough. The crowd cheers, Brock bumps, everyone moves on. The hierarchy gets challenged and then quietly restored. Obafemi isn't playing that game. And creative, whether by design or by the energy Obafemi is bringing to every single interaction, is letting him play a completely different game. What was communicated last night wasn't, "I can beat Brock Lesnar." We've seen plenty of people beat Brock Lesnar. What was communicated last night was, "I am the only person in this building, in this company, in this industry, who genuinely does not care what happens to Brock Lesnar's body." That is a different kind of threat. Brock has operated for years knowing that even his opponents have limits. Even the guys who legitimately don't like him, and there are several, still show up to work within a professional framework that has understood, unspoken rules about how far things actually go. Obafemi broke that agreement last night. And Brock knows it. And everyone in that locker room knows it. The question for Raw going forward isn't whether this feud continues. It's how WWE manages a performer who just demonstrated that the normal rules don't apply to him. And it's what Brock Lesnar does when he's confronted, possibly for the first time in his career, with someone he cannot predict. Closing call to action. I'm going to ask you something directly. Have you ever in all your years watching wrestling seen Brock Lesnar look uncertain in a segment? Not losing. Not getting beaten. Uncertain. Like a variable had been introduced that his experience and dominance couldn't automatically account for? Because that's what I saw last night. And I think you saw it too. And I think that's exactly why you're still here watching this video right now. Drop your reaction in the comments. I want to know, did this go too far? Did Obafemi cross a line that's going to make WWE pull back on this feud? Or is this the beginning of the most legitimately dangerous angle Raw has produced in years? Share this with every wrestling fan you know. Because this conversation is happening with or without you, and the more voices we have in this comment section, the better the discussion gets. Ring Rumble 1, we stay ahead of the story. Subscribe if you haven't. Hit the bell. And I'll see you in the next one.